Have you guys ever been told that you are not good at writing? If someone has said that to you at some point in your life, even though you classify yourself as a native English speaker, then I think this video is going to be extremely valuable for you guys. Welcome back to my channel, guys. My name is Mona and I am a journalist and editorial assistant turned corporate communications marketing and PR specialist. As somebody who officially classifies as a non-native speaker, but personally I feel like I am a native English speaker, and I've been told multiple times that your writing is not good enough. I eventually became a published journalist, and I think each and every single one of you guys who's watching this video probably at some point has had somebody tell them that they're not good with their writing or that they shouldn't think about being published. Because honestly, all of that is bullshit. Anyone can write. It is a skill that you can develop, and there are a few techniques that if you regularly and religiously follow, you can actually upgrade your level of writing, find your genre, and right type of readership. Okay, so if you guys are aspiring writers, watch until the end of the video because I've got a few really fun resources and really easy techniques to implement that can help you upgrade your writing style and help you find your genre of writing. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to find the basics. We're going to go through all the 7 techniques that will help you find your readership, that will help you level up your writing, will help you level up your grammar, your vocabulary. And then towards the end, I'm going to talk about some of the techniques that I use and some of the techniques that published authors and published writers and journalists use so that they can keep developing their skill of writing. Okay, so first things first, we want to get the basics of everything right. So depending on what your background is, whether you've been to a community college, whether you've been to a private college, or whether you've been to the top Ivy Leagues, there's always room for improvement when it comes to your writing. So you want to make sure that you get the basics right. So basics would be your grammar, your vocab, your punctuation. You want to make sure that you have all of those correct. If you're somebody who's an aspiring writer but is not very good at their English, all you have to do is just learn the basics. Basically like learning a new language. So if I want to learn French, then I would probably download an app or probably find a book, take a couple of lessons and get the basics right and then start from there. English is actually one of the easier languages. It's very easy to get into grasps with English. It's one of the most common spoken languages. So it's really quite easy to find books and courses on English. Even if you are somebody who's a complete beginner and has no idea how to level up their skills or is just a very basic and generic writer, or you know basic words in English but you want to become a writer, there are always ways that you can improve yourself. So just make sure that you get your basics correct, and then obviously you want to work from there, work your way up. And this is even for experienced writers. I sometimes still forget the spelling of specific words. I sometimes still forget specific punctuation or grammar when I'm writing really fast and I have ideas and I put everything onto paper or I put everything on my laptop and then I go back and I'm like, wait, how did I miss that? So that is completely normal, honestly. That is probably a sign that you are a writer, because as writers we just put everything like a painter, we just splash everything onto a Word document and go back to edit. So don't worry about it if you don't get your punctuation, grammar and spelling correctly the first time around. The other thing I was going to say is that in the world these days you always have tools like AI and also Word document that will help you with your grammar. There's also Grammarly, which is really good. I had that on my laptop and it was actually really helpful when I was in my corporate job because it helped me edit everything really fast. So that's a really good app to download. If you are a writer and you're looking for those additional tools that will support you so that you can focus on the story and the plot line, there's no shame in getting support and help when it comes to grammar, punctuation and vocabulary. And I'm pretty sure that there's lots and lots of accomplished writers, best-selling authors, editors, writers that are using these tools and getting additional support. So please, please, please do not listen to the noise and listen to yourself. If you want to be a writer, there are ways that you can achieve those things, whether it's learning physically the old school way, the traditional way where you take classes and learn everything from the basics, or whether you're just upgrading and you're leveling up your grammar, leveling up your vocabulary. Once you know your basics, then I think the rest is pretty much just general practice to build onto that and create your own identity and your writing identity. Now that you know the basics and you understand grammar, punctuation, then what you want to do is you want to focus on understanding what your level is. So the best way to do this is read your writing and then read a writer that you are inspired by or somebody's career that you want to achieve. I wouldn't say that compare yourself, but I would just say study between the difference with your writing and the difference with the writing that you want to achieve. For example, if you're looking to write a nonfiction book, then you might want to read a couple of nonfiction books which are similar in the style that you are trying to achieve, and look at the differences, whether you're using plain vocabulary or you're using complicated words in your vocab. What's the sentence structure? Are you looking to add more research in your work? So it really just depends, and I wouldn't say compare, because comparison between your day one and somebody's best-selling book is not a good idea. It's not good for your mental health, and it's also unfair to yourself. But I think just in terms of having a look to see what your level is. For example, when I read Arf Kung's books, I look at them and I think she's such a talented writer that it would take me a really long time to get there. What that makes me feel is that she's a really talented writer, and not everybody can be Arf Kung. But looking at her style of writing, it's very grown up, very dark academia, but it's also very complicated in terms of the words that she uses and the sentence structures. And then if you compare that to Yellowface, is actually written in very basic language. And if I look at my level and I find that my writing is very straightforward, it's very Yellowface and it's just basic language, that is my style of writing. That doesn't mean that your book is not going to be appreciated by the right audiences. It just has a different audience to than a book like Babel would have. So it's very different, and you have to understand, and you also have to own what your own style is. And in this day and age, most books are actually very basic level writing. There is honestly nothing wrong with that. If that is your style and that's what you feel comfortable with, that is your level of writing, and that's the type of books that you should be writing. And obviously, if you want to work towards a more difficult book or a more complicated book or a more in-depth book or a book that is more research-based, then obviously you can develop your skills, and there's different techniques, and as you're developing that, your writing will obviously get better. The more books that you write, the more stories that you write, the more excerpts that you write, obviously your writing will get better. The more books and stories that you read will also help you become a better storyteller. So the main thing is to just focus on what your writing style is, what are the words that you're using, and just stick to that writing. The world that you're building is interesting. That is the biggest key thing that you should be focusing on. Now that you know the basics and you understand your level of writing and what your style is, now you want to build on that. So I mentioned before that books are something that you have to read if you want to be a good writer. Honestly, this is something that every single best-selling author will tell you. Any writer for any show, any comedy skit writer, anyone will tell you that becoming a better writer starts and ends with reading books. So look at the books that you're reading. Read the books that you enjoy reading. Read the books in the genre that you're hoping to write a book. Read lots of Stephen King if you're looking to write horror books, or looking to write a horror screenplay, or looking to write your Halloween content for content marketing. Read those type of genres that you're going to be writing about, because that is one of the biggest cheat codes of becoming a better writer. It hasn't been proven, but I'm pretty sure that the more books that you read probably directly correlates to how good of a writer you are. In order to be a good fashion designer, you have to understand fashion. In order to be a good writer, you have to read books. You have to be somebody who reads books. If you're somebody who does not read books and is expecting to be a great writer or a good writer, or in general having something published, that is going to be an impossible task. Anyone and everyone will tell you that who's tried to dabble into writing or who is a bestseller. If there's anything that you take away from this video, I would say read before you actually think about writing, because you can learn the basics. You can learn your style of writing, but if you're not reading books and you're not reading a variety of books, you're not going to have any ideas. You're not going to have an idea of what you want to do with your book. There's a few things that's happening when you're reading a book. So number one is you're learning subconsciously. So you're learning new vocabulary, new words. You're learning the ways that somebody is structuring that story, how it starts, how it ends, the descriptive words. How do people describe things? How do people describe different scenes? How do people describe characters? All of those things People can teach you, but you can learn them in classes or courses, but it becomes subconscious and you're constantly learning it the more books that you read. It's basically like studying for a biology exam, studying, and then every time you read up on specific things about biology, it's in your subconscious mind and you don't have to learn it again. So yeah, the more you read, the more your mind is working subconsciously, and whatever you're learning, it kind of comes into play as you're reading. You could do a course, and you could do a course specifically about developing characters, but actually if you read a book and you see how an author develops a character, it's actually much easier to understand it in the context as opposed to just studying and learning about it separately. I mean, not to say that it doesn't work for some people, but I think out of personal experience, I think when you read a specific character or a specific type of storytelling technique, it's actually easier to absorb and understand in its glory as opposed to isolating it and poking at it in a classroom. If you're somebody who's struggling to pay for traditional school or who's struggling to pay high fees for courses or separate courses and want to kind of learn everything at the same time, books are probably your easiest cheat code to get from A to B and to level up your writing. If you guys are interested in reading a couple of books that'll make you a better storyteller, watch this video. So I'm going to link this right up here on top. These are some of my favorite storytelling techniques that have helped me level up my writing, and they've helped me become a better storyteller for brands. So I would really recommend watching the video. Now that you know the basics and you've set up tools that will help you write your best writing, you've understood your level, you've read a few books, but you're struggling with vocabulary, for new writers, I would suggest create a document. So as you're reading books, if there are new words that are coming up that you think would be useful in the book or the stories that you're going to be writing in the future, or you find a word interesting, I always create a vocabulary list. I still have one, and every time I read a new book, there's always new words that I'm discovering, and I always write them down in my vocab. I have my list on Notion, but you can make a physical one, which is actually what we used to do at school, and it was more fun because you had a physical dictionary of all the vocabulary that you knew, and you could pick it out and read it. The good thing with Notion is that you can put it into a database. You can actually categorize them in descriptive words. For example, you can say describe people, and then you could tag all the words that you've written in that list and that database that helps describe people, and it will give you that list through your filters. That's a really good system that I've used in order for me to learn new vocabulary and also use different types of words so I don't sound repetitive. There are always new words that you're going to be learning. Even as somebody who's spoken English for 30 plus years, there's always going to be new words for you guys to learn. Whether you're a beginner or whether you're at expert level, there are always new words that you can learn, and there's always new ways of saying old sentences. So if that's something that you're interested in, then I would say create a vocabulary list. Okay, this is probably the only section where I would suggest that if you are struggling with storytelling techniques, find yourself a really good course and see if you can do some. There are some great YA fiction courses. There are some great classes that you can do on writing, on different storytelling techniques. And then obviously the other way is you can also, again, read the type of genres. So look at the genres that you want to write in and the storytelling techniques that they use in those genres, and then kind of add that to yours. But in my experience, my personal favorite way of learning different storytelling techniques is probably through doing courses. I would in the future love to do a YA fiction course. That's something that I've been dying to delve into, and also how to do script writing. It's something that I'm definitely interested in, like skit writing, something like SNL skits or something like that. I'm really interested in that type of writing. But you can also find books. There are some great books on writing. It's not technically storytelling, but you would have books on writing. So Stephen King has a book which is called On Writing, which is one of the best books I've ever read. Elizabeth Gilbert has a book called Big Magic, which is about writing and about being a creative. And these books are not specifically from best-selling authors, but they're also from people who've worked in corporate communications or have worked in PR or who own brands, CEOs of brands who are trying to portray their story about somebody who launched their brand and how they wrote their story, and kind of take that and write that for your content marketing. But you can also read a book by Stephen King on writing, and you could either write a book using that technique, write your own autobiography, or you can also use it to just generally level up your writing. So there are multiple storytelling techniques. Just depends which one you're looking for. So depending on whichever medium you choose for your storytelling, you then have to find storytelling techniques that work with that medium. So your storytelling techniques for a movie might be a hero's journey, or if you're looking in series, often they do that in series where you watch the first episode and you get a glimpse of what happens in the future, and then they start the story from the beginning. So that's called a loop story, where you get a glimpse of the future. So it's a looping story. And then there's other different techniques that you can use for different mediums. It just depends what you're doing. Luckily, if you're writing a book, you can read books to see what kind of storytelling techniques they're using in books, but also you can take a lot of classes. For movie and for books, there's a lot of classes out there that you can take. I think there's also masterclass where experts teach you about storytelling and writing. You can take advantage of those platforms and learn from there. There isn't one size fits all. Just make sure that whatever medium that you're going to be working with, just make sure that the storytelling techniques that you are learning and the words that you're using and the visuals that you're using are going to be working well with that platform. Okay, so now that you are aware of how to write the basic, you've read all these books, you've got systems into place, you're doing courses, learning more about storytelling techniques, come to a point where you want to focus on finding yourself as a writer. In order for you to find yourself writing, you just have to write. The more you write, the more you find out what your style is, the more you find out what you enjoy writing about, what kind of genres you like writing about. That is something that will develop with time. It shouldn't be that difficult, because if you like writing, then you're most likely writing almost every day, or you have a project ongoing that you're working on. You're serious about the career that you're going into writing, or whether you're content marketing, or whether you're doing communications, right through to becoming a best-selling novelist. You are going to be writing quite a lot in order to find your style of writing. So if you enjoy doing that, you're going to be writing, and you're going to have a system in place where you're going to be writing at least a couple of hours a day, or maybe a couple of hours every week or every month, working on that specific goal. What I would say is don't be hard on yourself, because writing is not an easy skill, but it's a skill. The more you work on it, the more you write, the more you read, the more you're going to understand it, and then it will just become natural to you. So you enjoy the process. You're not going to be worried about running out of time, because you don't want to be in a space where you're not enjoying what you actually want to do. So make sure you make it enjoyable. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to talk about finding your genre. We have spoken about it before, because the more that you write, the more that you write different types of stories, different genres of stories, you're going to figure out what are the stories that you love. I genuinely love writing romantic stories. I also love writing travel stories, and I love writing stories where the hero's journey is about self-discovery and finding yourself, and I prefer that in female-centric roles. So that's my focus. Those are the type of books that I would like to publish in the future, and hopefully I do get a chance to do that, and you guys will be able to read my book. So obviously I would say expand your horizons, read all genres, figure out what's your favorite, write different genres, and figure out what's your favorite, because reading and writing different genres is a different ballgame. So you could enjoy romance books but actually find it quite difficult to write love tropes when you're actually sitting down to write it, which is what happened to me. But I worked through it because it's something that I really wanted to learn, and now I love writing them. The short but sweet message is, if you're looking for the genre that you should be writing in, then write more books. And also I wanted to add that you don't have to be a one-trick pony. You don't have to just write one genre. You can be really good at a bunch of different genres, and you can write different books. You don't have to be good at just one. So that's something that you may want to think about. So this one is for my brands who are out there. If you guys are interested in content marketing or finding a content strategist for your brand, if you're looking for somebody to tell your brand story or to work on storytelling techniques on all digital platforms, then get in touch with me. I'm going to link my email down below. You can send me an email and we can have a 30-minute completely free discovery call, and we can discuss how I can help you with your storytelling techniques, or I can come on and do the services for you. So depending on what you need, we can discuss it in the discovery call. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, I think you'll like this video too, which talks about becoming a better storyteller. Watch this video where I talk about some of the books that helped me become a better writer.